All right. Thanks for that, Jamie, and thanks for being our hostess. Do you want to say anything at all, or are we just jumping in? Okay, great. So thank you so much for being here together with us today. And I know that we have a lot of people who are also going to be joining us on the recorded sessions. So I will just think of you as being with us live here in person as well. And when I go through and ask some questions and do some interaction, I want you to participate just as though you're here with us live and in person. And my name is Heather Christie, and I own a company called Evolve Global. We just celebrated 18 years in business in March, and that's super exciting because prior to this business, I think my longest stretch was probably 7 years with one company. So I think I found what I love to do. And for today, I think the title that you may have received about the presentation today was Change Your Mind, Create New Results. And that's actually a Joe Dispenza training, which I happen to be certified in, and it's called Neuro Change Solutions. That's taking his work on how to make lasting changes in your world. It's really based in neuroscience, and it's an amazing, incredible program. What we're going to do this evening, though, is I'm going to share a little bit of my work and some models with you that hopefully will bring you some real distinctions that you can use every day in your world. And I'm also going to share a couple of things that I've learned from Dr. Joe that I want to help you understand and sort of the impact that I've seen both for myself and for lots of clients. But what I'm most interested in is really having you take a moment and figure out what's important for you and what you want to get from our session together today. So what I want to do is start off with, okay, I just got a note from Laura. She'll be with us in a minute. Okay, great, Laura. Can't wait to have you join us. Okay, can you see my screen here, Jamie? Yeah, good, perfect.
Yes.
All right. So what do you want? I want for each of you to just take a minute and really think about if there were a change that you would like to experience in your life, something that would be so valuable for you, something that would be so worthy of your time and effort and energy and investment, sacrifice, whatever it took. What is the change that you would like to materialize? And I want you to be thinking sort of holistically. And I know that this is, believe it or not, it's one of the toughest questions that you can ask yourself, is getting clarity with such a broad and open-ended question. What do you want? It's one of the toughest questions to answer. And so if you struggle at all and you don't have it right there in front of you, you may want to be thinking about some of the things that you experience day in and day out that maybe aren't serving you so well, or that seem to be taking your energy in a direction that you don't want it to go. And sometimes it's easier to figure out what you want by saying, well, I know what I don't want. So I want you to start thinking about that. And if there's something in particular that you want to get out of your participation today, as you think about bringing meaningful change into your world at any level, personally or professionally, this is really what we're talking about today. So is there anybody who would like to share, just put something out there, something that you want to get from your participation today? Who's got an idea? What's something that you want to get today?
Fresh inspiration, maybe a little paradigm shift.
Okay, perfect. So some inspiration. I love that. I love walking away from something feeling inspired. And then you also talked about a paradigm shift too, which is excellent. Okay. Thank you for that, Jamie. Gail, how about you? Is there anything in particular that you can think of that you want to get from today?
Pardon me. How to perhaps lead myself in a way that will reflect on more positively with those who I interact with, and I know you can understand this as a lawyer. um, I sat through a very difficult marketing committee meeting today and felt totally beat up, but I was proud of myself because I stood my ground on some things respectfully. But it's how to keep that inner calm and confidence when you're swimming upstream. I guess that would be that in a nutshell.
That really is, that is such a good one. How do I keep an inner calm and a confidence? How do I keep my cool? How do I keep my space, my positive energy, even in the face of an environment that reflects something completely different? Right?
Bingo.
So good. So good. I think that's something that all of us could benefit from for sure. Cheryl, do you have any thoughts? Anything that you want to get specifically?
I think, well, the first thing that always pops in my head of what do I want is freedom. And that's very, very, very broad. But specifically around difficult conversations and in the workplace, being able to approach those conversations in a way that's coming from a place of more of love and caring and consideration. But still wanting to resolve those conflicts and let people know, setting boundaries.
I got it. Boundaries. Oh my goodness. I use that word quite often. Asking people, what are the boundaries that you've set, right? So, all right, great. So how to have difficult conversations and how to have those in a very loving and caring way is what I'm hearing from you. So thank you for that. And Dolly, I know you're driving and I'm not sure if you can share. Are you in a place where you can share?
I'd like to improve the way I talk to myself. I find myself have these bad habits where I'll start thinking about things and that story that I'm trying to leave behind. So is there practical ways in order to improve some of those bad habits?
Got it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So one of my favorite sayings from one of my early coaches who I worked with, when she talked about, the identity that we have, what is your I am statement, is the identity is it's what I say to myself about myself when I'm by myself. And so if what you say to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself is not just positive and confidence building and loving and compassionate, then what does that do to you? Right? Because we're the ones responsible for that part of it, right? So that's a really good one. I really love that. Thanks for sharing that one. Laura, I think you're driving right now too. If you're able to share, please do.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Hi, Laura.
Hi, I'm almost home. Oh my goodness.
Good.
Okay, so mine's twofold. I'm still learning how to be productive and relaxed at the same time so that I have more peace, even though I love what I do when my type A ramps up, or what I've learned as far as how to be productive and, hurry, which doesn't make sense in my head. If I'm more relaxed, I'll probably.
Laura, I lost you there. Can you guys still hear Laura?
Nope, it kicked me out. I'm back.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so last I
So-
heard is productive and relaxed at the same time, experience more peace, and there's that distinction of you
Right.
want to hurry, but it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. It cognitively doesn't make sense. I know that, but getting out of that habit, I guess, it all boils down to more peace and joy. And so the second part is in my.
All right, I'm missing number 2, and I wonder if she got kicked out again for some reason. when Laura gets back on, we'll ask her what number 2 was. But I love the beginning piece, which is how do I get more peace and more joy in my world? And I think that it's interesting. I think everybody wants to experience peace at some level. Peace, joy, freedom, happiness. There are certain emotions that are important for all of us. And it occurs to me that in order to experience those things, we've been trained generally that we have to experience something in the external world that gives us that kind of feedback so that we can feel a certain way. Is that true? So I'm waiting for the thing to happen. I'm waiting for the financial return to feel abundance. I'm waiting for my health to get better to feel grateful. I'm waiting for things to calm down for me to feel peaceful or whatever. And the thing is, if we're always waiting for something out there, that's a cause and effect that's actually backwards. And we've got to figure out how to generate that from within, because the experience actually starts with our thinking. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about how powerful our thoughts are. And I'm going to challenge you in a couple of ways in your thinking, and I'm going to submit to you some ideas and some models, and you can feel free along the way to not only ask questions, but give me feedback on, what this makes you think or how it applies to you or what you're seeing. And please, 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 if as we're going through and having this conversation, you have what I might call like a light bulb moment, a BFO, a blinding flash of the obvious, stop and share that. But at the very least, please, please write it down for yourself, because the rule of thumb is that if you see a flash of an insight for you, and it's kind of like that aha moment, and maybe you've known it all along and it's been right there for you, but you capture it in a different way, please write that down for yourself, because if you don't, you could very easily lose that. And that insight is meant for you. So if you happen to get the gift of that insight from yourself, please take a moment, write that down. Okay. So I have some slides that I put together, and they're not necessarily in order. This is not meant to be a canned presentation anyway. So I'm going to turn it off, grab the slide that you need in the moment. But we'll just kind of go through and I'll share some things as we go. Did I miss anybody, by the way, for sharing what you want to get? Is there anybody else on who I haven't asked? Okay. If not, feel free, chime in.
Laura is back if you wanted to check with her number 2.
Oh, good, Laura. We missed your number 2. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm actually in the house now, so I shouldn't lose connection again. Sorry about that, ladies.
Perfect. No worries.
The number 2 ends up being more peace as well. It's on the personal side, not being stuck in the loop of thinking about the health issues that are there, but thinking about them makes them always there more. So it's just getting out of that loop of focusing on that and being more in joy and peace.
Got it. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that one. And it's really interesting that you brought up the thought loop. I actually have one of my slides as the actual thought loop. So you're going to really appreciate that one. And for those of you who have never experienced a thought loop, actually, you've all experienced a thought loop, but maybe you've never heard that terminology before. It's a real thing, right, Laura? It is a real thing. And I'm going to explain to you why it happens, because if you can understand the mechanics of what's happening with you physiologically, you can change that. That's the most beautiful thing. And here's the thing, we don't, until you have the tools, you don't know how. And so I want to give you some of those tools, some of the tools that have been hugely valuable for me. So we live in a world right now that seems to get, I mean, like, you just wonder, like, okay, what's happening now? Because it's just constantly in flux. The rule is that it's just always changing. So change can create a lot of stress. And so stress is a piece of what I want to talk to you about today. And if I look at all the different things that you want to get, there were a couple of themes that I got, and here are the themes. If I could summarize some of it, were some of it was the feelings that I'd like to feel, the emotions that I'd like to experience, everything from freedom to peace to joy to, you know, all the experiences that we want to have emotionally. But there was also talk about the habits, like how do I change the habit of doing X, whether it's my thought loop or the habit of how I talk to myself, or just the bad habits that maybe I've created in general, the habits I have around how I communicate with people, the habits I have around how I react when I'm in a meeting and things aren't going exactly how I want them to go. So we're going to talk about all of those things, and we're going to really see what's at cause and the matter. And guess what? This is the statement of truth for you that I have, and that is this: stress is not caused by circumstances. It is in fact caused because of your reaction to those circumstances. And I want you to just sit with that for a moment and think about that. The way that you define stress, the way that each of you defines stress could be unique. What is stress? It's a feeling, it's a thought, it's a feeling, it's a thought feeling loop. But stress is a real thing. It's a real thing that starts with thinking and ends with a physiological, chemical, hormonal response in your body. We're going to talk a little bit about what causes stress, and we're going to just take a look at how much time you're spending there and what the impact is of that stress on you. But most importantly, what can you do about it and how can you make a change? So, and by the way, does anyone want to react to this comment? Does anyone want to challenge me on this comment? The fact that stress is caused by your reaction to the circumstances in your world, not the circumstances themselves.
I love it.
Totally. And I want you to think about, here's what we do as human beings. This is just human nature. We look outside ourselves, and it's whatever that circumstance or environment is projecting that causes me to feel a certain way. Right? I mean, that's just it's what we do very, very naturally. And the minute that we can create the shift in thinking to own my reaction as being caused by me, my reaction is caused by me and what I'm allowing my thoughts to be in reaction to those circumstances. And here's where we have choice. And I think that that's really, really important. So this is one of my models, and I have developed this over the years and modified it, and I'll show you in what ways, but it's my model that I call on the court. And on the court is a way of being. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of taking personal responsibility for everything in my world, for how I think, how I act, how I feel. All the results that I create in life are my personal responsibility. And I would ask you to consider adopting this thinking and taking this on, which essentially is the only way of being where you can actually control the results in your life, right? The other way of being, of course, is off the court. And that's everything else. On the court's really simple, 2 words, right? Personal responsibility. When we get to the off the court, this is in some way, shape, or form negativity. It's negative thoughts, negative feelings. It's when I might be blaming someone, something outside of me, something external to me. I have a complaint about it. I don't like it. I might make an excuse about why I'm unable to produce something, but that excuse always has to do with something external. Maybe I'm in resistance. Certainly everything's changing. And what resistance might you be experiencing at this point to some change that's happening in your world, or to some emotion that's showing up for you? You can rationalize when you're off the court. You can procrastinate when you're off the court. I could change these words up every single time I teach this slide, and there are so many that could go in its place. But one thing I always have on this side of the slide is denial, spelled like an acronym. Don't even notice I am lying. It's the best definition I've ever heard of denial. So I'll say it again, just in case you didn't write that one down and you want to capture it. It goes like this: don't even notice I am lying. Laura, you're loving that one. I see it by your face. So I want you to think about this. anytime we find ourselves off the court, by virtue of the fact that we're off the court, we are in denial. What are you in denial of? What are you lying to yourself about when you're off the court? What do you think?
Almost everything that we think is going to bring us joy and doesn't.
Okay. Okay. So that could certainly be, we think something's going to bring us joy and then it doesn't, or it does for like a split second and then it's over, right? Like, so that could be one. Perfect. What else? What else do you think? What are you lying to yourself about when you're off the court?
Your participation in your life and what you're doing to get yourself there.
Okay. So perfect, Jamie. Yeah. So if I'm off the court, there's something that I'm not clear on where it's not me, it's something outside of me. I'm lying to myself by saying, I don't have the responsibility. I'm looking outside of me and saying, I'm a victim of my circumstances. That's a lie. Do you get that? If I think that anything has the power over me to think or feel anyway, it's a lie. Nobody has that power over you. No one can make you choose how to think. That's 100% up to you. Am I wrong about that? Or is that a truth?
Truth.
Definitely truth.
Truth, but not a but. Truth. And you have to get over so many years of being taught how to think a different way.
Yeah, you're right, Gail, because we are just sort of trained, maybe even better said, programmed to think that the external world has anything to do with how we think. True?
True.
So I want to just talk a little bit more about that thought of being programmed. I'm going to make a note of that. And I'm going to come back to that because that's a pretty strong word, but it's just so true. So what happens day in and day out is we have choices all day, every day. And I'm going to have this line right here represent that choice. I have a choice every single moment of every single day in every single circumstance about whether to think with personal responsibility, to take personal responsibility, or anything else. What happens with most people, if I'm teaching this slide to a room full of executives and I say, so what do you think? Are you usually on the court or off the court? What are they going to say? I'm on the court. I'm on the court. Now most other people are off the court, but I'm on the court usually. And then what's the but? What's the except? I'm usually on the court, except when what? Like, when do you think people will admit to going off the court?
Anger.
When they
Yeah,
think
when something makes me mad, when someone makes me mad, when something happens.
yeah, they
I
think
know
they're
for-
in control.
Say that again, Jamie.
Anger, like when they think it's not in their control. So they're still being reactive to something else. So they're still blaming.
Okay, good. Yeah. If there's something that I can't control and something goes wrong and I can't do anything about it, I can't fix it, something bad happens. Or how about this one? Well, I do really well. I stay on the court, but you know what drives me crazy is when somebody else is negative. When you encounter that person who's just so off the court, then you know what? I go there too. Because guess what? This is super, super contagious. And what happens most of the time is that we're running around, like days going well, things are right, everything's good on the court. And then all of a sudden, traffic happens, or a marketing meeting happens, or, you name it, like a difficult conversation happens. And then what happens is it's not that we choose to get over here and go negative. We don't choose that. No, I really don't believe anybody like intentionally is like, okay, I want to be in that place. And I just really don't want to feel good. what happens instead is we fail to choose. We're in the habit of reacting, acting the same way we acted before, reacting to a similar circumstance. It's only habitual. And so boom, like trigger response. And so what happens is we fail to choose, we end up here, we just kind of get pulled here, maybe we fall here. And then it's only in recognition and realization, remembering this line of choice. This is your awareness line. That's why we put a bright color there. Only when you remember that you have a choice, then you can choose. And even if you know it, you still don't always choose to just jump right back on here because maybe I feel like being upset for just a little bit longer. Maybe I deserve to be upset for just a little bit longer, right? But I want you to think about this for a minute. We worked for a while and we spent a lot of money with our graphics department to come up with something that would indicate how we can tell the difference. And I don't want you to be confused about these graphics because this is really all that we needed. If it feels good, if your emotional state is good, if you're feeling positive, you're on the court. That's how you know. If you're off the court, it doesn't feel good. And I make it a joke about this, of course, and I wish it were that simple to just pull yourself here, but the reality is this is the key that's missing from a lot of the models. You know, you hear a lot or read a lot. Every single solitary book that has anything to do with success is going to talk to you about the power of positive thinking. The challenge is when you're here, it's hard to know you're here because usually when you're here, there's a stress response, and in a stress response, you actually can lose access to the thinking part of your brain, which is the decision-making part of your brain, which is also known as the frontal lobe or the prefrontal cortex. It's the most newly developed part of our human brain that is the most amazing part of our brain. But the reason we lose access to it is because in a stress response, we go to a place in the brain called the amygdala, which is also something you may have heard before is the fight or flight response. So what happens in stress? What happens when something goes wrong, when we're not feeling good about something, or we're scared, or we're angry, or we're upset, and all the chemicals are running through our body? We go into that stress response and we're not thinking clearly now because we've got this chemical reaction going. And that's why we end up staying here for a little bit of time, but it's unconscious. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you go there, you just stay there and you can't figure out why you can't get out of there? Because it takes getting yourself into this place of making the choice. And this is what I really want to talk to you about today is the ability to get into an objective observation space. And here's what I mean by that. So who was it? Was it Dolly that was talking about, you know, I want to change how I talk to myself. So only in awareness can we change our thoughts. And one of the greatest things about the prefrontal cortex is that part of our brain allows us to observe our thoughts. So I'm curious, how much time do you spend in observation mode? Like just observing the thinking, not judging it, but just observing it. Is that a thing that you do? And some of you are sitting there asking yourself the question, do I observe my thinking? What would it look like if I observe my thinking? And then you move into the observation mode. You're like, hey, I'm asking myself right now if I observe my thinking. That's observation mode. That's it. And you can do it anytime you choose. But here's the thing. Without going into an extreme level of detail, let me just say to you that we actually are creating programs in our brains. Like we're creating these neurocircuits of a certain way of thinking. And when we repeat anything long enough, and especially if we add a dose of emotion to it, we're hardwiring that into our brain. So it makes it really easy to repeat it and loop it and loop it and loop it. And so when you're in that space, you're sort of in the program, like a computer like you're in like a program. The minute that you go into observation, I want this to be observation for you, right? This is where you observe this thinking, observe this feeling. When you go into observation mode, you've pulled yourself out of the program. That is now a moment of choice. So you can, at that moment, just observe the feeling that you're feeling. Don't resist it. Don't judge it. Just observe it. Might even be okay to feel it. That's part of the observation. But do you know sometimes that feeling sticks around because of this very word right here? How many of you know that? How many of you have heard the saying, what you resist persists? Has anyone heard that one? What you resist persists. So a lot of times the reason we get stuck somewhere is because we're subconsciously, unconsciously in resistance of that. Like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to feel that. I don't like that. And if you just step into observation mode and you don't judge it. So that's the hard part. Like when I first learned some of this technology, man, I got good at observing and judging my thinking and my feeling. And that's not the drill. That's not what we're taught. So it's finding a way to just be an objective observer and just have a little bit of compassion and just watch and just see what's happening. And if you want to de-escalate an emotional response, try jumping into that observation seat. Totally different experience. Is there anyone who can relate to this? Anyone who's done this before and had that experience where it just is like a completely different experience?
100%.
Awesome. Laura, you too?
Yes, and I think that's why I get so upset when I can't do it because I'm stuck in judging, and then I know better, and then I'm like hard on myself.
Yeah. And so what's great is, here's the next level then, Laura. The minute you catch yourself judging yourself for not doing it right, and then judging yourself for judging yourself, remember the orange line, go there again and observe the judging of the judging of the judging and just sit with it and then ask yourself the question, is this where I want to stay? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to keep doing this drill for longer, or would I choose something different? And what's most important when you're breaking a thought habit is that you get crystal clear on the one that shows up automatically. And judgment is a real thing. And that shows up just about everywhere for just about all of us in this 3D world. And so take that for what it is. If that happens to be one of your things that you experience, the alternative becomes really important. Watch when it happens. What are those triggers? What are the circumstances? Without judgment, just an observation. What is it that has you be in judgment? And then ask yourself, okay, if I were to choose a different emotion, what would I put in its place? And I want everyone to write one down right now. So assuming, and I know nobody on here probably judges anything, but just pretend you do. What is the emotional experience that you would rather put in that place? What would you choose? Everybody take a minute, write down your word. What would you prefer instead of that feeling of judgment? How would you like to feel? I'm going to give you a second to write your own word down, and then I'm going to ask you guys to share. What would you put in its place? Because here's the thing. If you don't get intentional about putting something different in its place, it will show back up. Nature abhors a vacuum. We got to give it something. Got to give your brain a new software. So who wants to share one? What emotion would you put in its place? Cheryl.
Curiosity.
Oh, I love that. Love that. Curiosity. Really good. Jamie. Excitement. Very good. Laura.
I'm stuck on the peace word.
Peace. Perfect.
And I really love
it.
I really love your question too. For me, that I need the going somewhere, the direction to go somewhere else. So I love that. Is this where I want to stay?
Yeah. Because honestly, you get to do you, and you can stay there as long as you want to experience that. You really can. but all you have to remind yourself is it's a choice.
Good one.
And then you just ask yourself again, if you're like, nope, I'm staying here for a while. Okay, got that. Perfect. Let's do this a little bit longer. Okay, next, are we ready? Do you want to do something different? Right? Okay,
Right.
really good. Really good.
Good
All right,
one.
how about Dolly? What would you put in its place?
I think just like neutral, like be more neutral in my feelings. Like don't assign a feeling all the time. Maybe listen more and just not make a judgment at all.
Okay. So could that be, so neutral certainly can work. I almost hear something almost like allowing whatever to be is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
just
yeah, I think that's a good word, allowing.
let it be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, good. Let's see who else. I'm calling by video. Dana, are you there?
I'm here. I arrived late, so I'm kind of still trying to catch up and trying to get situated here at home. I'm in a different time zone, so I'm really struggling to like get on the calls at 4:30. So sorry, I'll
No
pass.
worries. No worries. So just to catch you up, Dana, what we're talking about right now is thinking about being in a certain mental state. We've chose judgment as an example, because I know most people are experiencing being in a place of judgment at some point in time. And it's just an example of saying, when you catch yourself in that feeling of judgment, like Laura shared that she'll find herself judging something and then she'll get aware of it and then she'll get mad and judge herself for judging something and then become critical, which is so natural and common, like when you get to that place of observation. So my question was, if you were going to choose an emotion that you'd like to experience instead of judging, whether it be judging yourself or judging someone else, what emotion would you prefer to experience? Like, what would you choose?
Yeah, for me, I go internally. So I would say like forgiveness or grace or, something like that to go easier on myself, because I really beat myself up internally when I judge myself. And so I have to take a step back and realize that I need to be kinder to myself and more gentle to myself and not so hard on myself.
Perfect. I love that. Okay. So good, Dana. Forgiveness, grace, those are great ways. And so the idea is to just make sure that you're always choosing the alternative, right? It's if we try to take away a natural reaction, emotional response, we need to know what response do we want to replace that with. And by the way, practice it and practice it and practice it. Repetition, repetition, repetition. And Laura knows when it comes to tennis, because we have watched lots of tennis together. When it comes to any sport, what do they do? What do they do to get better? They practice and they practice and they practice and they practice. And why do they do that? And it's because with repetition, you are gaining access to your subconscious mind. And it's your subconscious mind that is all powerful. Your subconscious mind rules your world. 95% of the time, you are acting from your subconscious mind and not your conscious thinking mind. And that's a good news, bad news kind of thing, because it's true for your thoughts as well as for your actions and behaviors. And so if you have a certain way of being, which we all do, and there's a certain emotion that shows up on a regular basis, whatever it is for you, we've all got them. We've all got some of these kinds of emotions that are happening on a regular basis. First step is identify it, become aware of it, right? Remember, you have a choice about this, but the first step is awareness. If I don't feel good, catch it. As soon as you feel the feeling, what is it? What am I feeling right now? Name it, identify it. What is it? Some of the typical kinds of feelings that I will hear is anger, frustration, annoyed, resentful, fearful, judgmental, jealous, what else? Name them. Slighted, unhappy, like you name it. You name your negative emotion. Everybody has some of those that are on repeat. What's yours? I want you to take a minute right now, go inward. What is the emotion that you feel most that would fall into this kind of category? What's the one that shows up for you most? You may have to think about the people around you, because though your dearest loved ones will elicit your special emotion for you all the time. What is that emotion?
For me, it's worthiness, like not being worthy,
Unworthy. Okay.
or unlovable.
Okay. Unworthy, unlovable, or unloved, unlovable. Okay. Got it. Okay. Very good, Dana. Good awareness. Who else has one? What's your emotion?
Disappointment.
Disappointment. Okay. Thank you for that one. Was that Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. Who else? Who else is in contact with that emotion? What's showing up?
Not good enough.
Okay. Thank you for that one. That's good.
Frustration.
Frustration. Okay. Gail, that was my number one. Although, you know what I found showed up for me, Gail, that I didn't even realize was there until I really dove into this work. What was underneath frustration that was showing up was annoyed. And I was like, God, I didn't even know that I was there. Yeah. Yep. What else? Who else has one? What shows up?
I
Anyone else?
recently realized a big one, which is sadness, just an underlying sadness that comes out.
Okay. Okay. So you feel this sadness thing. That's good that you are aware of that emotion, that you have that insight. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. What else? Anyone else? Is there anyone who can't find it? It's like, no, I don't really think I have a negative emotion that shows up often. Anyone not in touch with that emotion? Okay. So here's what I want you to do. Once you get clear on what that emotion is, I want you to start looking for it. I want you to start looking for it and finding it. And I want every time you find it, instead of going to judgment about that, I want you to get excited because you found it. Because remember, the second you go to awareness, you're outside your program. You're no longer in the automatic reaction. You've just taken yourself out of it. Now you can look at it and go, oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that thing again. Look at me go. I just found it, right? So instead of judging it, get excited that you found it. See if you can put together, what was I just thinking that created the emotion? So that's the drill. You feel the feeling. You don't catch the thought usually, but you feel the feeling that's produced by the thought. Does everybody understand that distinction that I just shared? Okay. So you're looking for the feeling. When you feel the feeling, and usually it's not going to feel good somewhere. For me, the frustration shows up in the solar plexus. Whatever you have as your emotion, you're going to feel it somewhere in your body. Head, heart, solar plexus, pain in the butt, neck. Like, where does it show up? Do you guys know? Are you in tune with that? Where does your emotion show up? Tell me the body part.
Mine's my lower back, and it's usually
Lower back.
when it's some sort of emotional vulnerability in intimacy.
Okay. So vulnerability shows up in your back. So here's the thing. Now that you've said that out loud, next time you feel the feeling in your back, the light bulb's going to go off and you're gonna be like, oh, this is what Heather said to pay attention to. What am I feeling right now? Feel the feeling, name it, and then ask yourself the question, what was the thought that I just thought? And it's going to surprise you sometimes because it'll be right there for you, but it goes without your knowledge, playing in the background, creating the emotion and the feeling, and sets off this whole chemical reaction. So once you start catching the thought, that's when you're like, okay, now I've seen it. I'm outside the program. I've seen the thought. What's a new thought that I want to put in that place? What's a new thought? What's the new emotion? So let's just pretend, okay, let's just pull one of them. Laura pulls peace. She wants to have peace. Well, if she's in judgment and all of a sudden she catches herself judging and she goes, okay, what was that thought I just had? Oh, I was beating myself up for X. Okay. But no, I'd rather be at peace. So what would I need to be thinking right now to feel peaceful? Well, I need to be kind and loving and compassionate with myself. So instead I'm going to say, you know what? I really, really appreciate that. I just saw this about myself. I'm doing the work. This is really good. Love me, like whatever. Like Laura, you get to pick it, but you pick it, you create a new dialogue, literally, and in repetition, guess what? It's in repetition that you can hand that over to your subconscious mind. So your new reaction becomes one of compassion, one of peace, one of being, giving grace, forgiveness. And it literally, like, I know that seems really, really simple, so much so that you could totally dismiss it and say, well, that doesn't work. But unless and until you actually give it a shot, but pick one, just pick one, and you got to pick that one and work that one and work that one enough to be able to get so good at it in repetition that you actually are retraining, you're using your conscious mind to retrain your subconscious about what it is you truly want. And by the way, the state of mind that you're in as you do this actually really matters. So I'd like to add something to that conversation. And that is, when you find yourself in that negative space, whatever it is that you're feeling and wherever it is, someone else give me a body part. Where do you feel it?
Either in my
No.
heart when I'm anxious, or my neck and like Superwoman neck.
Okay. So in the heart or in the neck. So you've got a couple of places that a stress response can show up. You're going to pay attention next time you feel the physical sensation, and you're going to ask yourself the question. What are you going to ask yourself?
Is this where I want to stay?
Okay.
That one?
Good. Yeah. Well, ask that. You're going to be asking that for sure. First thing I want you to ask yourself, when you feel the feeling, wherever it is,
what was
feeling, what was I just thinking?
What was I just thinking?
Yep. Perfect. So that's the first question you're going to ask. Cheryl, you are going to come off mute. Where does yours show up?
Neck and upper back, between the shoulder blades.
Okay. So it's all in this region. So the next time you feel that physical sensation, you're going to ask yourself what question?
What was I just thinking?
What was I just thinking? And the minute that you get in tune with what you're thinking, you're going to remember to not do what I did. You're not going to judge what you were thinking. You're just going to observe it. And then you're going to ask that follow-up question. Is that what I want to be thinking? Is this what I want to be feeling? How long do I want to stay here? That's when you get to make the choice. What's the new thought? And you just have to remember, what's the feeling that I want to create in this moment? So what thoughts would I have to think to create the feeling? So this all goes back to the very first question I asked you, which is, what do you want? What do you want to get? And we all want these, really, we want these feelings, right? We want these emotions of peace, of freedom. We want to be able to talk to ourselves in a nice way so we feel good about ourselves. And rather than waiting to produce something externally that will give us that feeling, right? Because that's all the illusion, is that anything out there can make me feel anything in here. Instead, we're doing it from the inside out. We're taking personal responsibility for the thoughts we think, because it's the thoughts we think that produce the feeling. It's the reaction we have to the outside world that produces the concoction in the inside world that has us feel good or not feel good. Is that making sense to everyone? Let me take a pause and ask, does anybody have any questions at this point? Is there anything that we've talked about so far that we need to review, or are you tracking with this? Does this feel right to you?
I have a question, actually.
Okay. Sure.
So when I am feeling like unlovable and nobody loves me, or nobody's there for me, or unworthiness, whatever, what do I do in that circumstance? Is that when I say to myself, like, what am I think, like I'm already thinking that. So then how do I get out of that, I guess, headspace?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect question, Dana. Thank you for that. I still want you to recognize the second that you feel that emotion that is connected with I'm unlovable or I'm unworthy, whatever it is that's coming up for you, right? So I still want you to ask yourself the question, what was the thought that I was just thinking that gave me that? Because there's a connection here, and the thought, so let me give you an example of something. The thought might be, oh my gosh, did I just say something that I shouldn't have said? Did they take that the wrong way? where there's something that's not, the thought's not, I'm unlovable. The feeling is I'm unlovable. My question is, what's the thought that prompted that feeling? Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I want you to capture what the thought is, because there's some story that you've been telling yourself. And so it's just awareness. Again, you're going to awareness. I want you to do a little bit of exploration for you to see what are the thoughts that are coming in that are making me feel this way. Okay, so that's part one. What do you do about it though in that moment? And here's the thing that is so amazing about this work, and that is this. You and only you are the one who gets to change that story completely and make it a brand new story that is the opposite of that, if you choose. So you'd have to be open for the possibility of, I am lovable, I am love, I am loving, I am worthy of love. Now, saying that out loud in the beginning is going to seem like it's out of alignment if you have a belief that's different from that. Is that true?
Yeah, and I can say that I've struggled with this. So like I will write that affirmation like a million times. Like I'll write like I am lovable, I am worthy, but it's happening like the relationships or the attraction or whatever keeps coming back up that I feel like unlovable, like the relationships are showing me like almost like I'm unlovable, that feeling.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And so exactly that, which is I'm doing the work, I'm writing the affirmations, I'm repeating it, what's missing. And there's the combination of two things. Part of it is the affirmation. That is amazing work that you've already dialed into this. You've figured that piece out. You've got the affirmations. The second piece of it is generating the feeling of love in the moment as you're doing this. That's the big piece. Because if you keep repeating it, you'll get there. I promise you. How long it will take depends on your emotional state. So here's the thing that locks everything in for us. It's the experience, the combination of the emotion with the repetition. That's the access to the subconscious mind. So let me say it a different way. Instead of looking to my environment to confirm or deny whether I'm lovable, I do that work inside. I love me. Start with you loving you, and don't worry about anybody else in the whole wide world. And when you can get to the place of loving you authentically, genuinely opening your heart to you, guess what's going to show up in your external world? Because it's a mirror. Have you ever heard this before, that our external world is simply a mirror, which is a reflection of the thoughts that we think?
Yes.
We get to experience in the external world exactly what we're feeding mentally to our external world, as it relates to us, as it relates to others. So keep doing the work. The one thing I would have you do is generate that feeling of love. And so whatever it is, what do you love most right now in this whole wide world? What opens your heart up and makes it just so full, like it wants to explode?
Honestly, not a whole lot.
Okay.
Really
Okay,
not that I want to like explode or, whatever. Like I can't say that.
Okay. So let's start smaller than exploding. Tell me what you have experienced anywhere from all the way into your past where you've had a great love. And I don't care if it's ice cream. I don't care if it's a puppy or a kitty or the sunshine or a rainbow, any of it. Is there something that you can say, I've literally stood in a moment, experienced this, and felt love?
Yeah, I guess when someone chooses me, or makes me feel loved, I would say
Okay.
that.
Okay. So for right now, totally. Did everyone just see the external validation you have felt before, and it's felt amazing, right? You've actually experienced and felt that love. Perfect. So you know how to generate that, and you don't need to wait. You don't need to wait. You can actually generate. So what I want you to start doing is remembering love as you say your affirmations. I am loved. I am lovable. I am loving. I am love. I am just love. Because all we do is we forget over time. But let me just talk about this whole idea of programming. So I wanted to come back to that big words right next here. This is just when you start to study brain waves. Has anybody studied neuroscience at all, and brain waves, and a little bit about that? So we have different brainwave patterns that we go into, and I'm not going to bring you deep into this because you don't even need it for this conversation. But let me just tell you that from the time that we are in the womb, because it actually starts before conception, believe it or not, until the time that we're about 7 years old, we are in a brainwave pattern that goes anywhere from what's called delta, which is like a sleeping brainwave pattern, to a brainwave pattern that's called theta. And here's what you need to know about that. That's the brainwave pattern you need to be in to be hypnotized. So hypnosis is a real thing. People can be hypnotized. What does it take to hypnotize someone for them to just accept without judgment any suggestion? It's being in a theta brainwave pattern. So think about this for a minute. Up until the time you're about 7 years old, you're in a state of hypnosis. What does that mean? It means you don't have a conscious mind working that accepts or rejects what you hear. You're only accepting whatever is coming your way from anyone. When I first thought about that, I'm like, what could have been going on my first 7 years? And there's certainly all kinds of good and fabulous and loving stuff. And there's certainly all kinds of other stuff that could have come into my awareness that probably didn't serve me. And I think about, like, what were the age of my parents back then? They were in their 20s. And I think about myself in my 20s. What was I doing? Okay. Like, you just start thinking about, well, what sort of conversations did I overhear? What did I take on? What were my friends doing at that point up until the age of 7? And what did somebody say to me before the age of 7 that I might have just accepted as truth because I was in a hypnotized state, accepting everything? Does this make sense? Like, your environment, your parents, your siblings, your friends, your teachers, your pastor, whoever it was, whatever they said, no matter how good their meaning was, you took a certain way and it became part of your identity. It became what I say to myself about myself when I'm by myself. Is this making sense? Is there anybody like me who's like, oh boy, I got to go back and really think about that? Well, it's whatever it was. And how about the fact that sometimes we might have even heard something and taken something and believed something, basically made it our program, and it wasn't even a thing that was real or true or even intended. Is there a chance that any of that happened? Absolutely. Absolutely. So Dana, I don't know where you got your thinking from, but there's a really good chance that it came from way back when, before you had conscious thought. And it's part of my point in saying that we all have a choice. And you don't know until you know. And so now that you know, you can actually start to really examine your life and say, what are my I am statements? I am fill in the blank. What is it that you're saying to yourself about yourself? And is it serving you? Is it the truth? Or has it just been up until now something that you've believed to be true? Because beliefs come from our environment at such a young age when we have no filter. We just accept whatever is offered in any which way. So think about this a little bit. If you go back to thinking about your relationships, every relationship you have with anything has a belief tied to it. Your relationship with money is a perfect example. What is the relationship with money? Is it I am abundant? I'm always have enough? Is it lack? Does lack show up elsewhere in your world? Did you potentially have access to somebody who might have said something silly like, money doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work hard for your money, or money's the root of all evil, or whatever, like you name it. Did you experience struggle from somebody related to money when you were younger? Like, my God, I can think of moments where I heard something about an argument that my parents had about money, and like T. Harv Eker has this whole program about it. It's called Your Financial Blueprint. We have a blueprint that literally is our relationship with money, and chances are really good we got that during that hypnosis phase before the age of 7. And then when you look at that as an adult, and if you understand that, doesn't it give you pause to think about the fact that I might have made some decisions about my life early on. I might have made decisions about relationships, whether it's money, whether it's, how about relationships with other people, with a spouse, with a significant other? What is that founded in? Is that founded in just unconditional open love? Usually it's not. Who were the role models? Right? We just took it all in. We learned how to do it without even knowing. So what that produces, let me show you this for a second. We are in one of two states. We're either in a state of survival or a state of creation. Another word for a state of survival is a state of stress. State of creation is a state of flow. And so I just want you to think about this for a moment. How much time do I spend in this survival state, the state of stress, versus the state of creation or flow? And what's so interesting is when I first ask people, like, how often are you in stress? I get very, very differing ranges and results from people. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with what their version of stress is. So I'm not talking about a 10 out of 10 pull my hair out stress. Yes, that's included. But I'm also talking about the everyday unconscious stress, which comes from one of a few different things. So there's 3 different types of stress that we have created in our worlds. One is the physical stress. So that's like a physical injury. It's a trauma. It's, if you fall down and you hurt something, your body is in physical pain. Your body sends help, right? That's physical stress. You've got chemical stress, which has to do with any kind of toxin or virus or pesticides, heavy metals, blood sugar levels, hangovers, those kinds of things. Those are chemical stress. Sometimes we do it to ourselves, right? Then there's emotional stress. And this is the one that puts most people into our healthcare facilities. And those have to do with everything related to a tragedy that you experience. A hurricane would fall into emotional stress, which many of us just got to experience. Financial pressures, parenting pressures, taking care of aging parents, anything related to the job, difficult conversations, technology issues, traffic, anything and everything that creates that off the court sort of reaction and response. So when you think about it that way, and then you ask the question, how much time am I in a state of stress versus a state of flow? How many of you have really experienced that state of flow? Like, what that state of flow is like. When do you feel that state of flow? Give me an example. When have you felt totally in that state of flow?
Like as in the signs that I know I'm in the flow, or?
Yeah, sure.
It can be conversations I have. It can be, dots kind of connecting. It can be my ability to stay in a certain vibration to where I'm, in your words, on the court.
Okay.
I'm over here. I'm not being pulled in or webbed into anybody else's stuff.
And how does it feel generally? Like, what sort of emotion might you place?
Oh,
when you're in a state of
incredible.
flow?
Joyful, ease, freedom, flexibility, peace. It feels incredible. It feels like empowerment, invincible.
Perfect description.
Yeah.
It's a perfect description. Like all of those words. Don't you just get energized hearing Jamie talk right now?
I'm
Yes.
energized saying it.
Yeah. Okay. Who else has felt it? Raise your hand if you felt it. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Someone raised her hand and I don't see whose name that is. Is that Dolly? Okay. Dolly, What does it feel like for you? And when are you in flow? She's trying to come off.
Sorry,
mute. There you
trying
go.
to unmute there.
That's okay.
I think it is like a peaceful feeling. You do feel like you feel confident in your thoughts, like everything's in alignment. There's not like a disassociation between thoughts and feelings. It's kind of just one feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay. So it puts you
Maybe
in
like
this
after
state.
you go for a run. You know, when you go for a run,
Yes. Yes.
that's
Okay, so
kind of
that's
that. It does feel like a runner's high.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely perfect. So I love that you've had that experience. I don't know if everybody's had that experience, but even if you hate running, if you do it long enough, you will feel that runner's high. You'll feel that moment of magic where you're just in like, it's like euphoria almost. Yes.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Okay. I want you to really get this. You're either in one of two states. Do you guys just get this? You're either in a state of stress or you're in a state of flow. You just heard from each other what flow feels like. What percentage of your day are you in flow versus stress? Write it down right now. Write stress, give it a percentage. Write flow, give it a percentage. And I'm going to guess that it's easier to quantify flow because it's more unusual typically to be in that state of like euphoria, peace, freedom, love, right? I mean, I don't know. Depends on your world and where you are in your evolution. It's not true for everybody. Sometimes it's balanced in a really good, positive way, and sometimes it's not. And it's okay. We're not doing this in judgment, ladies. We are doing this in observation. You got your numbers? I just want a reflection reaction to your numbers. Look at those numbers and tell me, what is that? What did you just see for yourself? Dana's shaking her head no. I got that just from looking at your body language there. You're like, I don't like my numbers, right? Anyone else? What'd you see? What'd you observe, Cheryl?
I don't like my numbers, but I also recognize the significant shift to flow over the last 4 or 5 years.
Fabulous. Unbelievably fabulous. Tell me one thing that you have taken responsibility for that has moved that direction and moved yourself in the right direction.
My career.
Okay. All right, good. So you found a career that is a better fit for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. What else? Anybody else? You look at your numbers. What do you say to yourself? Yeah, Gail.
I don't like my numbers. They were better last year. I had 70% in stress in any given day and 30% in flow.
Okay.
I think stepping away and observing myself in that situation, because I've kind of let attention go off myself this year. Because I think last year was my year to work on me. I hit my goal weight and like, oh, boom, I'm done. So this year it's like I've been falling back into not the weight things, but the mind things.
Got it.
And not really working on my health and love for myself this year like I did last year. So
Gail, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that because I heard this line one time that like, man, I can't repeat it to myself enough. Yesterday's transformation is today's ego trip. Which means like, it just means we are constantly in transformation. The minute that we think we've got it done, if we don't reset that growth path, I'm not saying don't undo it, celebrate it, enjoy it, love every minute of it, and keep going, right? What's next, right? Because we are here to evolve. I truly believe we are here in this school on earth simply to grow and to remember. And Dana, by the way, this one's for you. Are you still with us? Oh yeah, you're still there. I feel like we are here to remember that we are loved. Like that's it. We're here to remember how to love. We're here to remember that we are love. And if we're spending all this time in stress, the beautiful thing is we've just acknowledged that, and we get to ask ourselves a question. Laura, what do we ask ourselves? How long?
Well, first, what was I just thinking?
Very good, very good. What was I just thinking?
And then, do I really want to stay here? This is where I want to be.
Stay here. Do I really want to stay here? So the greatest news about this whole thing is the fact that we can change that. And I'm going to show you another concept here that's just so cool. Have you ever heard of the Hebbian law of repetition? So it basically goes like this. Guy named Donald Hebb, I think his name was Donald. Anyway, this scientist literally studied like the physical brain, the neurons and how they connect together. And they literally do. When you think of thought, they actually connect. They create a neural network. They go together. So nerve cells that fire together, wire together. So what does it mean? When I think a thought and I start to get these nerve cells that go together, if I think that same thought again and again and again and again and again, I basically create this neural network where my neurons are together. I've wired that thought in. I've made it just natural. I don't have to think anymore and it'll just be there for me. But what's so cool about what he learned and what he saw is not only that if I think a thing enough times, they'll wire together and it'll be wired into my brain, but he also realized nerve cells that no longer fire together, no longer wire together. And I can't tell you how awesome and amazing that news is for all of us, because here's what it means. Whatever it is you've been saying to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself doesn't have to continue, and you can do something about it. And you're the only one who can. And you get to take personal responsibility for choosing the new thought. And just like Dana has started doing and is going to continue to do and do with ever so much more emotion of love, is creating the thought that you want to think and doing it with a matching emotion. So here's the thing. Dana was describing before that she's been doing the work and she's been writing the affirmation, but she hasn't been feeling the things, and the things that show up externally are still telling a different story. So what I want you to start doing is I want you to unwire the old thought, which means every time you catch it and you say, what was I just thinking? And you recognize it and you go, oh, I don't think I'm going to pick that anymore. I don't think I want that one anymore. I'm going to pick this one. And you pick the new one and you sit there and you do not get up until you generate the emotion that actually matches the thought. You do not get up. Do you get up until you get that emotion right? You don't get up. You don't leave. I don't care what you're doing. You stop. If it's important enough to you, you stop and you sit there until you generate the emotion of peace, of love, of freedom, whatever it is you want. When you get good at that, instead of whatever else that you've been doing, like you're really good at what you're doing now. You're so good at this. You are so powerful at this. Look at what you've already created. You do it all the time without even thinking. Question is it the right thing? Is it the right thought? Is it the right emotion? And if it's not, okay, great. You've already proven to yourself you're awesome at it. Pick a new one. Train yourself. Do it again and again and again. And guess what? If you don't have it, you're going to do it again. You with me? Because if you keep thinking the same thoughts, they're going to keep wiring together. If you keep doing the same things over and over and over again, you're creating those neural connections. So you can hardwire your brain into that finite pattern that becomes your identity, but you can also unwire it. So start catching those things that you say, start catching those items like, oh, I'm such a procrastinator. Is that a good story for you to tell? Stop telling it. Like, oh, I am just not a morning person. Is there anyone like that? When I hear someone say that, I'm like, oh, it's so powerful. It's such a powerful way to start your day. Pick a new one. Pick a new story. So I want you to think, I want you to write down just a couple of things. What are a couple of things that you say to yourself, that you've been saying to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself, that you're just kind of going to be done with? I'm just done with this. I'm done with this story. Like I've lived this long enough and man, what a ride it's been. But I want a new one and I'm ready for a new one. Write down at least one, but I'd love to see if you can come up with 3. What's your story about you? And here's the funny thing. You don't even think it's a story. You think it's the truth. So it's a stretch. Like, what's true about you? What are the things that you say to yourself? Oh, I just can't fill in the blank. Or, oh, it's just so hard to, or I can't stop. What is your thing? Write down your things. What's your story that you've adopted? Pick at least one. See if you can come up with 3. See if you can find 3. These might be limiting beliefs. We'll call them limiting beliefs. Who's got one you want to share? Jamie, go ahead.
I've got a few. They're all around the same subject that I'm working on right now.
Okay.
I don't have enough money.
Okay.
I need more money. I need more clients. I don't receive stable income.
Why?
Well, because that's what I've been telling myself for 41 years.
Well, I know that, but usually there's even something more. Like if you were to say why, I mean,
why?
Yeah.
Well, because of what I heard growing up and I've become accustomed to it. It's become familiar now. It's what has kept me safe, but I don't need it anymore. You know?
I just heard a noise in my background and I yelled to see if we could stop that noise, but thank you for that. So you're giving all the right answers, but if you were to just go with the subconscious answer, I'm looking for something like, well, why don't you have more clients? It's hard.
Oh.
Or like, what's the thing that you say? Do you know? You may not know it.
No, I just know that I'm the one that's stopping myself from doing it.
Yeah, you got to find that thought.
So there's
something
shame. There's shame for sure.
Okay. Okay. Got it. I want you to look for the story you say. And you know what? If I did a separate interview with you, we'd find all of it. Because if I just get you into story when you're not thinking, you'll tell me the whole thing that's on your subconscious mind. But essentially, there's going to be something there, something like, well, you know why I can't get enough clients? Because nobody really understands this work that well. And they don't want to get off their wallet. Like they want it, but they don't want to pay for it. Or there's a story there. I promise you there's a full-on story. I want you all to find the story that's behind the thing, but watch for that, Jamie. See what you're saying. There's a common thing that you find with all of it's either you like, because it's such hard work or it takes too much money to make money. There's something that's always a level deeper. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Who else wants to share one? Who else has, just like Jamie, it was an awesome one to share. Thank you for that. Who else has one that you just wanted, you're ready to get rid of? Yeah, Gail.
I'm done feeling resentment for people who have hurt me.
Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. So you've got that you have resentment for people who hurt you, and now you're ready to get rid of it. So I want each of you to take whatever it is that you've found that is your thing that you've been hanging on to. And I want you to just make a commitment right now before we hang up here. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, what are we doing? We're still going over. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm only going to go for like an hour and then we're going to talk. But I just like have totally gotten into this conversation with you guys. I want you to come up with whatever your thing is. And I'm just asking you right here, right now, to make a different kind of commitment, one that's different from anything you've ever made before, and put some emotion behind it and change the story. I want you to change the story, fill out a new one, and I want you to write next to it the emotion that gets generated with the new statement. So if I don't have enough, I have lack, I don't have enough clients, I don't have enough money, as an example, you could choose something like, I am abundant, there's always enough. But I want you to write something that signifies for you the difference, and next to it, write the emotion that you're going to generate. And you are going to sit until you generate the emotion. How does someone feel who has total abundance? how does someone feel? Well, they feel an emotion of freedom. They feel an emotion of gratitude. You sit there and you generate gratitude and you don't get up until you stop. And I promise you, the longer you sit in gratitude, gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. That's when it starts showing up for you. So if you can't figure out the right emotion to go with your new statement, I want you to go to gratitude, because gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. So whatever it is you truly want to receive, get yourself in gratitude, stay in gratitude. The longer you're there, the more you'll receive. That's what I've got for you today. I'm sorry I kept you over. I will give you a moment if you choose to share what was a takeaway that you got from today. What was something valuable? And if you need to take off, I totally get that too. But thank you for being with me. Anyone want to share what was a takeaway for you today?
Well, first, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Serious. Thank you, baby.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. You're totally speaking my language. So I definitely got inspired, and I'm definitely feeling definitely in flow and in alignment. And I appreciate that. I appreciate this interaction and your time.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I have to share because my heart is starting to pound and my eyes are starting to tear, and that's always like, damn it, now I have to talk.
Okay, go ahead.
So a weird aha thing that came up, like I've been working on being productive and relaxed at the same time for years. And so freaking realization that happened was so I learned that from my dad. And yes, my dad is still alive. However, I've been learning and training myself to not keep doing some of the things that I don't like that he does. So what came up was that's still connecting us. Because I'm like him in that way. So crazy shit.
Laura, that is a beautiful and amazing insight, an amazing insight. And so there's only one thing I would say about that, in sitting with that and really, really appreciating that you found that, is to also see if you can possibly look at that energetic connection with your dad as a complete and total allowance for him to have been exactly who he was, loving him for everything he is and everything he's not.
And just because I changed that doesn't mean that we're more disconnected.
Mm. Yeah. Beautiful. That's a great one. I have the feeling that you just had the shift, like that's already happened. It's gonna be
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out for you, but I think you already had it. Really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Okay.
sharing.
Thank you.
So cool. Yeah, Gail, go ahead.
I was really intrigued when you were talking about we're being sponges up until the age of 7, I think, and just like going everything in. Because I had an experience with Candace, and she zeroed in on the age of 5 for me, that something happened at the age of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had another session with someone, and it was also being something very young. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But when you said that, and hearing the conversations and who was in the house and the things that I was surrounded, it would just, like Laura, it was like really aha. It's like I know it was there, and I know how I was brought up. So I know those teachings. I remember arguments that I overheard that I wasn't supposed to hear as a little girl.
Yeah.
So it was like, whoa. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, Gail. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so interesting to think about the fact that as adults now, we can literally go back to that little girl and just embrace her for what she was taking on at that time. Like we all have that stuff that we all took on. And as a woman, as an adult, as a male, if you're watching this in the replay, just taking the moment to acknowledge and have compassion and go, wow, girl, you did a good job with what you had. You did a really good job with what you had, right? Yeah, so cool. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Anyone else? Dana, you want to share?
I just want to say, Heather, I just think that you look absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and put all together, and your background looks absolutely like gorgeous. Like, I just want to say, like, whatever you got going on there, you go, girl.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate you. You're so kind.
You look great.
We don't know what this background is or where it comes from, but we're pretty sure I'm going to find it one of these days. So thank you, Dana.
Oh, is it fake? It's not
Yeah.
your.
It's a picture. I've got a beautiful gray wall behind me. This is my studio. So it's just a painted wall.
It's so soothing and relaxing. Like, literally, like, I'm looking like at the beautiful plants and everything, and I'm like, wow, this is like so displayed so nicely. And I'm like, wow, like, your office looks amazing. Like, you're put together. You're on fabulous.
It's so funny. It's so funny. Well, you know what? Every single one of you can create any one of these. If you've got to look at it all day because you're on Zoom meetings, you might as well pick a fun one, right? Pick one that's soothing and relaxing. Same for me. I totally agree. Thank you. It's fun. All right. Well, unless anybody else wants to chime in, Cheryl, you got something? Yeah.
I do. Just, first, thank you for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. Just a ton of information that's just kind of really hitting home for me. Reminders of questions to ask, the pause to take when we're feeling in that space of being off the court. So thank you. It's just really appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate all of you being here and the interaction and the engagement. And honestly, I literally, I don't even know how else to say that other than I 100% was so in flow that I wasn't even watching the time. And I have to apologize because I literally, that's what happens with me when I have like people like you who are just in that space of engagement and growth. And like, I want to make some changes. There's nothing more inspiring for me than finding others who are on the same journey together. So I appreciate all of you. Have an awesome night.
Heather, thank you so much. Jamie, thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good to
Jamie.
see y'all.
Bye, everybody.